On this week's episode, we talk about hustler to business owner. How do you make that switch? My podcast was designed to help new and seasoned investors break free from the financial confusion by sharing real world investing and business strategies they can use to build lasting wealth and freedom. All right. Well, on this episode, we are going to talk about moving from hustler to business owner. And first of all, I want to set the stage here a little bit and I guess I need to make clear that I'm using the word hustler not in a bad way. Hustler is used by me, at least, to describe somebody that is a really hard worker and puts in tons of hours hustling. Not that they're hustling people, not that they're doing something nefarious, not that they're doing something wrong. It's just that they're a hard worker and they really put in the time and put in the work to build their company. That's a hustler to me. Now, business owner, quite the opposite. They may still be putting in the time, they may still be putting in the hours, but they're doing it in a much different way. And that's what we're going to break down and talk about: hustler to business owner and making that switch. Now, back on episode number 5 of this podcast, I talked about building a business from the ground up. And I mainly focused in that episode on hiring and hiring to scale a business. And I went back and I listened to that episode not long ago, and I thought, man, there is so much more that could have been said, but I just ran out of time. So this is another crack, really, at what will probably become a series on building a business from scratch, building a business from ground up. But this one is going to be called the switch, making that switch from hustler to business owner. Now, I also want to define business owner because I think a lot of people, when they start a company, they think they're a business owner. And maybe in the true sense they are, but in my mind, there's a difference between having a company and having a business. So for my definition that we'll use here in this episode, making a company, starting a company is simple. You go on the state Secretary of State's website typically, and you get yourself an LLC, and boom, you have a company. I mean, legally, you have an entity that is deemed a company. Or if it's a sole proprietorship, you throw an ad in a newspaper and say, I do this, XYZ, and boom, you have a company. Or you throw a sign on the side of your truck, or you put a sign in your yard in front of your building or your office, and you're in business. You have a company, but you don't have a business. I promise you there is a difference between a company and a business. So let's talk about some of these differences. And this thought really came to my mind the other day over the weekend. I was thinking about starting a new division in one of our companies. And we're going to be doing something completely different that we're not currently doing. Now, it's not a new company. We'll do it inside one of the company formats that we already have, but it's certainly a new division. And rather than immediately thinking about going out and hustling up the business that I would need to make that successful, my mind immediately started thinking about, who am I going to have do this? Who am I going to have do this? Who am I going to have do that? And it struck me after just a few minutes, I went, oh my goodness, that's a mindset shift. And it's a mindset shift that I don't know when I got it. I don't know when I achieved it, but I promise you I didn't always have it, because I used to be the hustler. I used to be the guy that was out there just pounding the pavement and working the phones and working the leads to bring in the business. That's the hustler. And at some point, my mind shifted. And now when I have an idea, when I have something that I want to implement, I've done the due diligence, I've done the research, I've made sure that this is something that I want to do. I didn't even think for a second about how can I go out and hustle up this business? How can I go out and get this revenue? I immediately thought about who could I have to do this for me? And I think that's one of the biggest differences in a company and a business, in a hustler and a business owner, is the business owner thinks about the who of it all. They don't think about the how am I going to go out and do this? And there is a book out there called The Who, Not the How. And if you would like to learn more about this concept, I have heard from many of my colleagues in business that they have loved that book. I have personally not read the book, heard the book, or bought the book yet, but I understand the concept because I'm living it today. And the focus is on the who, not the how of it. Most people, when they think I'm going to go do X, they immediately start thinking about, yeah, but how would I do that? How would I implement this? How would I get this done? And a business owner says, I'm going to go do X. I need people to go do it for me. I need people to go implement these things. I don't have to figure out the how. I just got to put the right person in place. So the idea of hustler to business owner is important because a hustler is only one person, most generally, and there are only so many hours in a day, so you can only grow so big. You can only get so far on your own as a solopreneur. To have a business, you've got to have 4 things at minimum. The first thing is you got to have systems in place. Now, as a solopreneur doing it all on your own, you don't have to have systems. You can do it all yourself. You can do it on a, Excel spreadsheet. You can do it on a legal pad. Hey, look, I'm still a legal pad guy. All right. I am the most untechnically advanced person you will know, probably, in business. But that's okay because I have people around me that are very technical. All right. Before I do these podcasts, Amanda walks in from the marketing department and she sets up the computer, then all of the stuff that is around me that you can't see. She sets it all up. She presses go, and it gives me on my screen a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 countdown before I start talking. I can do that, right? I don't need to be technical to be able to do that, but I have a who. Amanda. She comes in and she sets all this. I don't need to know how all this machinery, all this equipment works. I don't need to know what buttons to push on the camera and on this other thing over here. I don't even know what it's called, right? I don't need to know that stuff. I need to do what I'm good at. Who, not the how. Systems, though. Got to have systems. So what is a system? Website, CRM, customer relation manager, softwares of any kind, really. That's your systems. And I don't run most of our systems. We have so many of these systems. I don't run any of them. And my team knows I'm not going to run them. They know I can't do that. Could I learn? Sure, I could. But I'm not going to. I don't want to. And I don't want to because it's not fun for me and I'm not good at it. So could I learn to run all the technology here in front of me? Sure, I could. I'm sure. But would I ever be really good at it? No. So why would I endeavor to be mediocre at something, right? Why would I endeavor to just learn it, to know it? No, that's silliness to me. So we got to have systems. The second thing we have to have, if we are going to have a business rather than just a company, is we got to have processes. Market volatility got you stressed. One day you're up, the next day you're down. It's enough to make anyone lose sleep. That's why smart investors are looking beyond traditional stocks and bonds to diversify their portfolio. What makes ILS Capital different? While stocks and bonds swing with market emotions, our investment funds are backed by real estate notes, actual loans secured by real property. This means your investment isn't tied to Wall Street sentiment or corporate earnings reports. Instead, it's connected to tangible assets that people need, homes and commercial buildings. Real estate notes have historically provided more predictable returns because they're based on actual property values and loan payments, not market speculation. It's a completely different approach to building wealth. Ready to add some stability to your investment strategy? Visit ILS Capital at ilscapitalfunds.com/diversify. That's ilscapitalfunds.com/diversify. And learn how our real estate notes backed funds can help balance your portfolio. Investment involves risks, including potential loss of principal. Past performance does not guarantee future results. Please carefully consider investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses before investing. We've got to have integrations. We've got to have things that work together and build processes. Sometimes it's maybe integrations between systems, right? How is your CRM work with your website, or how does your social media work with your website? How does your CRM work with other softwares that you use? All of these integrations. How do you invoice a client? How does a client pay you? There have to be systems in place for these things to happen, for these things to operate. And a solopreneur typically doesn't have very many of these systems. They don't have very many of these processes. The next thing we have to have a business over a company is we got to have policies and procedures. Another way to say it is you got to have standard operating procedures. And it's best if you have them written standard operating procedures. Now, that's best because, first of all, you can give the same type of service, same type of quality every time if you have the same system and the same processes that you're using over and over. Take it, for example, McDonald's or any fast food chain. You know what you're going to get when you walk in because it is cookie cutter from store to store to store, from coast to coast, and around the world. Everything works the same. They might have different food on the menu based on the cuisine in that region, but I promise you their systems are all going to be the same. Their softwares, their procedures, their policies, everything's going to be the same. And because of that, they provide you the same level of service and the same level of quality food every time. You can decide whether you like that quality or not, but you know what you're getting when you walk in. And the fourth thing that we need to take ourselves from a company to a business is we got to have people. And we got to have people that we can let grow with our company. Now, I did a real quick little AI search. Now, see, I'm not technical, but I can type in a prompt. That's pretty easy. Even a dinosaur like me can do that, right? So I did a little AI prompt, and I asked AI what would be the keys to me maximizing the value of a business that I want to sell. I thought that'd be a cool little prompt and see what it came back with. Now, I have no business in mind that I would like to sell at this time, but if we're going to build a business, shouldn't we build a business that's clean enough that we could sell it if we wanted to? If we're going to build a business, we're going to take the time to build one. We may as well build one that has value in and of itself, rather than just the value of its cash flow to you and your family. Because at the end of the day, most companies could never be sold. Most companies don't have any value. And let's go through what AI told me would be the top things for me to do to add value, to maximize the value of my business if I were to want to sell it. And the very first thing on it was to have clean financials. That's the first thing it said. Have clean financials. I can tell you most companies, even some larger companies, don't have clean financials. Most real estate investors don't have clean financials. I can tell you this because I'm a lender to these folks. And I promise when we ask for financial information, they have no idea what we're asking for. I've bought shopping centers, I've bought apartment complexes over my years in real estate that the owners did not have financials. They did not have books. They could not articulate to you what their income and expenses were, what their balance sheet looked like. They had no idea. That's not a sellable business. Now, I'm talking about real estate here in my examples, but if you're building a business, it's the same way. A business should have value over and above the value of the assets it holds. Take my lending company, for example. If I wanted my lending company to be sellable, I would need clean books, right? That's what it's saying. You're going to need clean financials year over year, at least a couple of years of solid reporting. The next thing it says is consistent profitability. Well, that's easy to understand. I think we'd all agree with that. AI went on to tell me some ways to look for consistent profitability, such as looking at expenses that we could cut, looking at margins that we could raise, looking at other revenue streams, and so forth. So I think everybody understands the consistent profitability. The next one is normalize expenses. Now, this one was fascinating to me. I see it all the time when I'm looking at real estate, and I'm sure when we're looking at other companies, you'd see it as well. A lot of times owners will run expenses through their company that may or may not be related to that company and its operations. Doing that actually hurts the value of your company because it makes it look less profitable. Now, I understand the tax reasons for wanting to do that, but if you have expenses, look, even if they're legitimate business expenses that you could run through the company and that would save you taxes, but they're technically not related to the operations of that company, you may want to look at and you may want to talk to your tax proprietor or tax preparer rather, other alternative ways of doing it. And there are other ways of doing it because you don't want that to be used against you when you sell your business. The next one, documented and streamlined processes. Well, wait a minute. I think that looks much like what I said number 3 was. Yep, policies and procedures, SOPs. That was number 4 on AI's list of things to maximize the value of a business you want to sell. The next one, number 5, was leverage technology. I think that was on my list as well. Yep, sure was. Yep, number 1. The next one, diversify revenue streams. That one was interesting. I dug into it a little deeper, and it basically talked about not having all of your eggs or a large percentage of your eggs in one particular basket. Now, it talked about different baskets, one particular product. You want to have your revenue spread among different products in case that one product goes out of favor in the market. Another thing it said was you don't want all of your revenue coming from one client or 2 clients or one region geographically rather. So those are all the things that it said to do to diversify your revenue streams. And then number 7 was build a strong independent team. That's what it said. Build a strong independent team in your business. It went on to say, empower your managers and reduce owner reliance. Now, going back to what I put together on the differences between being a hustler and a business owner, number 4, the people. Absolutely, it's the people. maybe more so than the other things listed. So let's talk about the people that you're going to hire to build a business from a hustle, from just a solo entrepreneur company. And the difference in your job from hustler to business owner. Because when you make that switch, in your mind, you've got to tell yourself, I am no longer the employee, the solo employee, the only employee, which is typically how it all starts. I am now the CEO of my corporation of two people, right? I've got to be the CEO. Well, what has to change? Because a lot of times, a really good hustler, a really good hard worker is going to have a hard time making this switch. And it has to be a switch in our mind, because at that point, you now have a different job. You're no longer the person that's doing all the work. You are now the person that's setting the course for your company. You're now the visionary for your company. You are now doing several other new things. First, you're setting the path and the culture for your company. You're setting the vision. In every interaction with every employee from this point forward, your job is to inform and inspire your people. Inform them and inspire them. Inform them and inspire them. What does that look like? It says, hey, this is where we're going to go. This is why we're going to go there. And this is the direction that we want to take this thing. That's informing and inspiring, giving them the reasons behind what you want to do. I never tell an employee that I want them to do something without giving them a why behind it. Now, a boss would do that. A CEO would never do that. A boss would say, just do it because I said so. Well, it may work for parenting a 6-year-old that you don't want to sit and discuss why you want them to eat their food. But with an employee, you're dealing with an adult, okay? And for them, you want to give them the why. You want to have that discussion. You want them to understand the logic behind what you're doing. So inform and inspire and set the culture and the path for your company. Next, number 2, you want to hire and place key people that you can grow with or can grow with you, whichever way you want to look at it. I want to hire key people and place them in positions where they can grow with me. I can grow with them. Now, in order for somebody to grow with me, that supposes that I'm going to continue growing myself. Well, absolutely. That's number 3. Constantly be learning and growing myself. Constantly learning and growing myself. There is not a day go by I do not study and learn something new that helps me in my position as CEO of multiple companies. The day I stop doing that is the day I stop growing and being a value to my shareholders, which is my wife and I for the most part, to my investors in our funds, to our employees, and to my family in my legacy. I'm not going to stop growing. I'm not going to stop learning. And this is something that I think a lot of entrepreneurs have a problem with. I was sitting in a meeting with a former business partner, and I've had many former business partners over the years, but this particular one, I simply asked the question, do you think I'm the best CEO that we could have running the companies at this time? And he thought, and he's like, I don't understand the question. I said, well, if I'm not, we need to go find the best. We're making plenty of money. We could hire a better CEO if you don't think I'm a good CEO. It's like, but then what would you do? And I'm like, it doesn't matter what I would do. Right? I want the best person running my company and your company. I want the best. If that's not me, you need to have the strength to tell me that you don't think it's me. And I need to be humble enough to listen. And I am. He's like, no, I can't imagine anybody else doing it. No, not at all. I said, okay. I said, are you the best person in your job? And he stopped and he's like, well, I don't know who else would do it. I said, well, it doesn't matter who else. Are you the best person? That's the way we need to look at ourselves in our company. It's hard for solopreneurs to understand you can be an owner without being an employee. You can detach those two once you become a business owner. Look, if at some point I don't want to be CEO, could I still hire a CEO and still be an owner? Absolutely. Absolutely. My profitability would drop a little bit, maybe. I'd love to believe that, but I'll tell you how it could go the other way too, right? My profitability might lower by the amount of salary that I have to pay the new CEO. However, that new CEO may do a better job than me and actually add profitability. I might be better off at some point to back away, hire somebody else to come in and do the job of CEO, and I just sit back and be owner. And that's a mindset shift that we need to have, that we could understand that at some point, when we get out of the hustle and we build an actual business, that we could detach ownership from work in the company or employee. I am sitting here doing a podcast as the CEO because I'm an employee right now. I'm enjoying it. I'm loving it. I have no intention of quitting it. But at some point, will I? I could. I absolutely could, as an alternative to selling the company, as an alternative to leaving it to family, as an alternative to shutting it down. There are a lot of options when you have a business rather than just a hustle. When you have a hustle, you don't have any of those options. Your only option is either do it yourself or shut it down, because you can't leave it to anybody. You are the work. You are doing everything. You can't sell it. Nobody's going to pay you for it. It has no value beyond what you're making. Can't leave it to anybody. Same thing. So your only option is keep doing it forever or shut it down. Picture this. You found the perfect investment property. The numbers work, the location is ideal, but your traditional bank wants 60 days to close and treats your rental property like it's some risky gamble they've never seen before. Sound familiar? Here's the thing. Most banks just don't understand real estate investing. They're built for home buyers, not investors. And that's where Investor Loan Source comes in. We're a financing company created specifically by and for real estate investors. We know what rental income looks like. We understand fix and flip timelines, and we get that commercial deals move fast. Whether you're doing buy and hold rentals, fix and flip projects, or commercial acquisitions, we speak your language and we can close in days, not months. Stop explaining your business to bankers who just don't get it. Visit ils.cash/fast. That's ils.cash/fast, and work with lenders who understand real estate investing. We have to also, as the CEO of our company, after we get out of the hustle, we've got to start staying ahead of what's coming. And that's why I started doing these podcasts. Prior to doing these podcasts, I started doing an annual economic update or outlook in Houston. I probably started doing that, I don't know now, 10 years, 11 years ago or whatever. It became a big hit with the people that knew us and followed us. We would pack the room out here. We have a big training room out here. We would pack it out every year. I would do it once a year. And I always told everybody every year, I hate doing these things. Not that I hate delivering it. I love delivering it. I hated doing the research because it would take me 8 to 10 hours to put together the research to do the market update. And I said, guys, I will tell you the only reason I am doing it is because I've committed to doing it for you. It forces me to do the research. And as CEO of my company, I should be doing that research. But I promise you, if I didn't commit to doing that economic update for all the people that like to come and see it every year, I wouldn't have sat down and done all that research. There's no way I would have done that. Well, it's kind of the same way with this podcast. By committing to doing this podcast roughly once a week, I have committed to doing a lot more research. I've committed to doing a lot more deep dives on things that I know will help me grow and will give me strong analytics that I can use to drive my companies forward. I don't do this podcast for viewership. I don't expect I'm going to reach 100,000 viewers or anything like that. That's not my game. I'm not a social media guy. I don't live for likes and hearts and thumbs ups and comments and any of the other crap that people a bit younger than me might be impressed by. I know I'm not going to get all of that, and that's okay. I do this because it is a way for me to commit to doing something that I should be doing anyway. And it's a way for me to hold my own feet to the fire to continue to do it on an ongoing basis. Because at this point in my life, I don't have to do it. And that's a dirty little secret of success. Once you get to a point where you can do whatever you want when you want, you can get lazy. And you have to develop new ways of holding yourself accountable. This podcast is exactly that for me. It holds me accountable. It keeps me in the game. And it keeps me researching and looking at all the data that I have to look at to be relevant to you, the listeners. But it gives me the knowledge that I can stay ahead of number 4, which is I can stay ahead of what's coming. What's coming? When you look at what's coming, that can fall in a lot of different categories. What's coming economically? What's coming politically? What's coming in technology? What's coming in competition? That's a big one. Is there somebody new that I need to know about? All of this research, all of this data, it provides you some sense. Is it going to be accurate? No, it's not going to be 100%. Nothing is a crystal ball. Nobody has that. But it provides you some sense of what's coming. How about extinction? That's one that I thought of when I was preparing for this. We need to prepare for extinction. We need to prepare for the idea that somebody is going to come up with something that makes what we sell irrelevant and eliminates us from the marketplace. When was the last time you went to Blockbuster Video? All right. I remember going to Blockbuster Video and Hollywood Video at least every weekend to go rent VCR tapes to put in so we could watch a movie. Showing my age there, but I remember that was something we did with our kids, on the weekends. Something that I did before I had kids. All right, as a young adult. Now they're extinct. Those companies are extinct. There was something on the horizon that made them extinct. And pretty much everything has an extinction at some point. You remember when Sears was the biggest retailer in America, and they were supplanted by Kmart. Later on, years and years down the road, they merged to try to both stay alive. Was not successful. They were supplanted by Walmart. And at some point, who knows who will take their place? Well, we do know. Amazon, right? Amazon. Even though that's made up of many retailers, there's always going to be something coming that changes the game. In our hard money lending company, it was Wall Street money that came in and changed the game, totally changed hard money lending. Now it started to swing back the other way a little bit, but make no mistake, there is always something out there on the horizon that could make your company and your product extinct. Hence the reason you want multiple revenue streams. And then lastly, development. There are things that can develop over time that will completely change your company. It can completely change your product and again, make it irrelevant or change it dramatically. So those are all things that we need to stay ahead of in the what's coming category. As a CEO, lastly, I think we need to continually adapt and pivot with the changes that we see in the what are we seeing coming? What's coming category. Business is dynamic. We either evolve and change and morph and pivot, or we go the way of the dinosaur. We go extinct. Companies that can't change typically are going to go out of business. We've all heard of restructuring. We've heard of mergers. We've heard of acquisitions. We've heard of downsizing, right-sizing, expansion, adding stores, adding locations, shutting down stores, shutting down locations. All these things are change. And big companies do it all the time. They are constantly changing. Yet as that hustler or even the small business owner, we don't want to change. We want to keep staying the same, doing the same thing, cutting that cookie with the same cutter every time, because change is hard. Change is scary. But we have to change and adapt in order to succeed. Now, I don't mean changing constantly just for the sake of change, or changing constantly because we have ADD and we can't continue to do the same thing or we lose interest. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying changing based on the data, making changes based on the things that we see in the marketplace, the changes that we see in the marketplace that necessitate those pivots and those shifts. Well, that's what I came up with for the difference between a hustler and a business owner. Hopefully that was helpful for you, and we'll see you on the next episode of The Invested Mindset. Thanks for joining us on The Invested Mindset. To continue receiving actionable wealth building strategies, subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you turn on the auto download so you never miss an episode. And if these insights moved you closer to financial freedom, please take the time to leave us a rating. It helps other fellow investors and entrepreneurs discover these valuable strategies. I'm Tom Berry, and I'll see you next time as we continue building the path to lasting wealth and freedom.